In the last step, we talked about the top bar, and if you missed that, go ahead and watch that. There's a lot of content there. You can use the chapter markers to scroll quickly through it or review material that you may have missed or you want to watch again. In this step, we're going to be focusing on the left-hand bar, and this has a lot of the drawing tools that are really great and what make TradingView so powerful. Let's take a look. Here we are in TradingView, and now that we've covered the top bar in the last section, and boy, that was a long and informative video, this video is going to be a little bit shorter, just because there isn't too much content to really cover on the left-hand side, which is a good thing. So that way we can get onto the other parts of TradingView, which is the right-hand sidebar and the lower bar, particularly the screener. So let's start at the very top. This hamburger button up here, when you click it, it's going to show you a lot of different things, like your layout name. It'll autosave every 5 minutes. You can even share your layout. You can rename your layout, make a copy of it, so that way you can make changes to it, and also export chart data. This is going to come in handy for those of you that want to get information from your indicators, price action, all that kind of stuff. Of course, there's access to your profile settings account. Help center. All this fun stuff. Yes, more. Okay, great. But really, there are two main parts that I want to help you see. The dark color theme, turn it on and off right here. Boy, that hurts my eyes. I don't know about you. And the drawing panel, which would hide the left-hand side, which we definitely want to see. It should be on by default, but in case you can't see it, make this enabled. And there's a handy button right here to go to the keyboard shortcuts. But the shortcuts we have to share with you are the need to know shortcuts, and it's a lot easier. So we are going to close this and just start with the top. The initial tool that you have is a crosshair showing you both the time at the bottom of the screen and the price on the right-hand side of the screen. With this, you can do a ton of stuff. You can move the chart around by clicking and dragging. You can also zoom in by scrolling down and zoom out by scrolling up, depending on the settings for your trackpad or your mouse. I'll give you a tip too. If you hold down Command and you leave your crosshairs focused on a specific date, 29th of April, 2020, and I zoom in, it's not going to do this to the chart where it's going to go to the most recent date. No. April 20th, I want to know that exact candle. So I'm pressing and holding Command, and I'm zooming in or scrolling, and it's zooming into this particular candle. This is really convenient if you want to quickly scroll and see, I want to know what happened here. It's much better than doing this and no, I mean back here and this, and I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. It's much easier to use. All of these trading tools have a hidden window that you can see here on the right side. I take it back. Some of them don't have a hidden window. So when we enable this window or open it up, we can see some other options. If you don't like the cross, you can just use a dot, I guess, and an arrow, and an eraser, which will be helpful when we're actually drawing. Note that there's a star here. We actually can skip ahead to the favorites. This will make much more sense now instead of showing this at the end. But I have favorite drawing tools here that I will always have access to on my chart. So if I quickly want to measure the price change from here to here, boom, I just have to click this. I don't have to go over here to find out where it is. And no, you just save it as a preset. Done. I can do my fib retracements if I want to, just like that. And I can figure all this stuff out very quickly just by accessing my favorites. Again, I quickly erased those, or it seems like I erased them. I actually just undid it by using Control Z, and you can redo it by using Control Y. All right, moving down, I don't like the dot. I like the cross. Thank you very much. Now we have all of our lines. We have lots of lines that will help us get an idea of the trend. There are lots of different ones, and it depends on what you like. But I want to show you a couple of ones that I use a lot. And in particular, it's just a straight up trend line. Trend lines are easy to draw, where you identify where the price action may go next. There's also a hotkey for this, which is Alt-T. Notice that it automatically made this blue, and this is now the color red. This toolbar up here will let me customize my trend line, but let me draw something first. So I'm seeing a trend moving up. And this may be a dirty trend, but that's okay. Dirty as in, it's not perfect, it's not going by the wicks or the candle, well, kind of candle close, candle open, but now I want to modify this. I'm going to double click this line, and now I can get into lots of different things like the style of the line, where I can change the color. I can change if it's going to be a solid line, a dashed line, a dotted line. I do use dashed lines actually. And the reason for that is because I want to know if a trend line has been broken. We can also use a normal line or have it be an arrow if I want to point to something for some reason. I can do that. If I click off, you'll see that now it's an arrow. But I'm going to make it normal. I can also extend my lines, and you can do this with the other ones as well. The reason why this is great is because it really helps you to see, is your trend intact? Are there points of access that it also touches on? Let me delete this one because it's not a very good one. And I'm going to draw a trend line right from here. This one right there. So I'm going to draw a trend line. And now you'll notice this symbol is popping up. This is the magnet tool. When I have a drawing tool enabled like the trend line, I'm going to press and hold Command, and this is automatically going to lock to every single high, close, or open, close, and low, or OHLC candle, which is great. Without it on, it may not be completely accurate, and I want accurate for this one. So I'm going to press and hold Command, and now I'm going to find the next point right here. Now that I have this point set, I want to not extend the left line, but I want to extend the right line. Now we can also do other things like showing the distance. We can show the date to time range. We can show, the angle if we want. We can see all of our stats all the time, the price range. All of these things are really important for people that are really picky about measuring and making sure that things are correct. Let's see how this trend actually played out though. Does the price fall into it? Look at that. It's very close. It doesn't touch it, but it's respecting the trend. Right here it does. So you can see the power already. I didn't plan this out. I'm just helping you see this. So far, this is from this trend back here in 2018 of August, and it's still respecting the trend come March 2019. Let's see what happens. Oh, it falls below it, but then it moves higher. It's dancing, and then finally it breaks below the trend. Now we have a new trend that's happening. And again, we can make use of our trend line. You can see that, oh, it looks like this trend may continue. Let's see if this actually gets respected. To some degree, it's falling in here, but you get the point. It's pretty cool. Now, let's say that I want to make some other changes, like adding alerts. Yes, I can set alerts for when the price of XRP, which is Ripple, crosses this trend line. This is very useful and one of the easiest ways to set up an alert, letting you know that XRP on the daily crossed the trend line. Now, here's a little tip for you when setting these alerts. If you want to email yourself the price at which it's crossing this trend line, down here is this little thing right here. It says close. So you have to add these two squiggly brackets, type in close. Then we can just add a little bit of text at this. And then I'll get an email letting me know that Ripple on the daily, one day, crossing the trend line at this price. Really useful, but I don't need it right now. As you start drawing on your chart and you realize, wow, I'm really good at drawing trend lines, and you are on a trend line roller coaster and you're never stopping until you realize that your chart kind of looks bad and unusable. So there's a quick way to get around this. Note that I can use this bar up here, this toolbar, to help me do special things like changing the visual order, putting things behind or in front of things, copying things, cloning things, locking all of my drawings so that way they don't get moved, or even hiding them. But sometimes I just want to delete them. That's the trash can. And I don't really want to spend the time to go one by one, so we're going to skip ahead again. Down here to the bottom is a trash can, and I want to delete all my drawings at once. Much faster. So remove drawings. If you have many indicators, you can remove indicators easily right here, or everything. We're not done yet. Over here, there are lots of other things that will be very interesting to you, I'm sure. A couple that you may know or may want to investigate further are anchored VWAP, which is volume weighted average price. And the great thing about this is you just need to click on the chart, and then it will automatically draw it for you. This is, once you know how to use this is just too much fun. So you can see the line here, and now finally the price has moved up to the VWAP according to this, and we can actually do a better job and drag it way back here so that we have a much better view of how the VWAP has handled the price action, or how it's interacting with the price now. We don't have to go into the whole details of VWAP trading. I just want to show you a couple things. Two of the other things I use a lot are the horizontal lines and the vertical lines. Horizontal lines even more so. It's just so easy that I don't have to go Option T to draw my trend line. If I know it's just going to be a flat line, then I can choose a point in time, like right here looks good, and do Option H, done. Note my line right here doesn't have a context menu. It just draws it right away. But I can change the style of the line. I can change the color. I can even add text to my line and choose where it goes. I can even do, there's a ton of stuff you can do with this. You can even get specific with your coordinates. If you made a mistake and you want to make sure that it's not at 26,297, it's at 26,397. Well, you can do that. And of course, you can lock your horizontal line. That's really important to know. So we're going to keep moving through. Vertical line is the exact same. Of course, I can select it, or I can just press Option V and draw a vertical line. Note that mine is set by default to green. That's done with my template. So I've saved it as a template. And if you don't like that, you can change it, or rather you can make your own template by adding the same text to every single one that you make, having the line say the same thing. There we go. Every single time you place it, then you would save it as a template, but I'm not going to do that. Last but not least is the regression trend. This one is pretty simple to do, where we want to find a recent high and a recent low, and that way we can get a good idea of our trend. Now note this is quite tight. We could also open it up. Let's look at this right here to see how this trend would have played out right here. So I'm going to use the regression trend, and now we're going to go up instead. And let's see how the price behaved to this trend. Now, not perfect, but we can see that it interacted with it several times, which is interesting, even seeing these wicks falling inside of here. There are other tools that will help us do a better job of this, but we'll get to that soon. The Pitchfork tool is really interesting, and what the Pitchfork does well is to help us recognize a trend or a channel and pivot points within that trend. There are several different ways to use this, and there are different pitchforks to use. Let me just show you a quick one where I'm going to just draw. So here we've drawn a pitchfork, and typically what we do is we draw it from a low to a new high and the new lower, the new higher low rather. So this pitchfork doesn't look so helpful, but there are different variations of how to use it. If we go to style and we scroll down, there are 4 different styles of pitchfork. There's the original, which now when we see this original, we can see the red median line and we can see the price actually doing quite well staying within it. Finally, it falls out of the trend line, or rather the pitchfork, and falls down where we would have to draw a new one. But as we change and we see the different styles, we'll note that the angle of it changes, which is very interesting. So there's a lot of this that should be investigated properly. I don't have a section dedicated to pitchforks. I'm just here to show them to you and show you where they are, so that way you can start investigating using them. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't use pitchforks too much. I really like fib lines. I use Fibonacci lines a lot. These are probably my bread and butter. I'll show you the difference. Let me go back to my object tree. This is a little sneak peek. I'm going to delete that pitchfork. The reason I like fib lines so much is that it shows a price projection and certain levels that are incredibly obeyed and respected, as well as where price could possibly go to next. You can see on these extensions. But again, I'm not teaching you how to use it, just helping you. So you can see here, even with the naked eye, that there are trends in play. We can see this trend right here. Let's see how the pitchfork would handle this. We are going to use the modified version, not the shift, but I want to use the inside, so that way we can see, does it actually help us? Whoop, hold on a second. There we go. Note that as I'm using the pitchfork and drawing my lines, if I click here and I press Command, now it's locking. And this is really what I want. I want it to magnetize to these values. Go. Now I can see this pitchfork in action and see, does the price respect it? Yes, for a while, but then it breaks out of it. So then I could try an alternative pitchfork pattern. Next is the drawing tools, and these are straight up drawing with brushes. Note that mine is equipped with an arrow at the end. Right here, you can choose the arrow to have on the right end as you're drawing, or the left end as you're drawing. You can even edit drawings that you have. You can edit the color of my drawings. I can edit the style or the thickness of my drawing, which is great. Copying things, if I want to copy and paste my drawing again. So note that I'm drawing, but I can't move anything. If I want to move something, the best thing to use is the crosshairs. Now that I've made my drawing, I can move my copy, and this looks very weird, so we all know what to do with this. Bye-bye. In the drawing tools, you can also do things like drawing rectangles, ellipses, triangles, polylines. These are really easy to do and really easy to understand. Once we can see a shape, sometimes it's just easier to understand, okay, well, we're in a range right now, and it looks like we could continue. We could even say, well, I really want to extend this right because I think that we're going to see this channel continue even further, and we'll see what happens with the price of XRP. But if we do continue left and right, well, we can clearly see a range. Similarly, you can use ellipses, triangles, polylines, and curves to achieve all of this as well. Now it brings us to the text menu. I guess there's a ton of stuff in here that's not text, but you get the point. You can draw a lot, you can do lots of different things, you can change the visibility, you can change the font of it, or not the font, but rather the style of it. It's useful, especially if you want your text to stay in a certain location and never move from this spot. So now when I scroll, it's never going to move from this spot, not on the chart, but on my screen. So be careful. It's useful. It has its purposes, but just be careful. You can also leave notes for yourselves, callouts, balloons, all this fun stuff, but we're going to skip that because we don't need it so much. Now we have patterns, things like Elliott waves, cyclic lines, time cycles, head and shoulders. These are great things to know. The one that's easiest to recognize is the head and shoulders pattern, and we're going to start with that first. Without looking at the chart, drawing a head and shoulders, you want to draw a left shoulder, come down, and now you're going to draw the head, which is typically higher. And then you come down to the neckline and you go up to the right shoulder, which is usually below the head. And that's a head and shoulders formation. You can even have inverted head and shoulders, which would be flipped upside down. We can see a successful head and shoulders pattern right here, but without the diagram, it's a little bit difficult to see. Let me show you. Here's our left shoulder, neckline, head, neckline, shoulder. And once we see this head and shoulders pattern finally filled out, what we expect to see after that is a rejection of the shoulder line right here, or the neckline rather, sorry. And the price falls down, and it sure fell down after that. And like I said, we could find examples of inverted head and shoulders patterns. So this is an inverted head and shoulders, and the price usually goes up after exiting out of the neckline, which is this right here. There are other things in here that would require more study, like the Elliott wave cycles. We're not going to get into that. This is probably my most used section because I like knowing date range and price range. You can see I have it favorited here. Really simple to use. You just click and drag, that's it. So 51 bars, 51 days, very useful. However, if I were on the 15-minute time frame, drawing this, I want to know, well, how many days did it take to get from here to here? Well, it took actually 11 hours and 30 minutes, or 46 bars. It does the math for you. Thank you, TradingView. I don't want to do that math. And then price range. This is great. And I use price range a lot. The nice thing about price range is that it stays on the chart. It's locked in right there. Note though that if you do change your time frame, sometimes that price range will look a little bit weird because where you once had let me show you again, where you once had a box, now on the daily, it's just a line. So just remember that if you change time frames, it may look different. Other things on here that are pretty cool, you can do a combination of both. That's very nice. But the ghost feed is really something that is cool, I think. Ghost feed is basically drawing a trend line and then expecting price action to move in this same direction. Now I'm just copying what's already there. So let's delete that, and I'll show you what it looks like here. So we're looking at the daily, and when I have my indicators and I've drawn what I think is going to happen next, maybe I think the price is going to come down here first, but then it's going to shoot up higher, a little bit lower, and then finally make some new highs, and then I can stop. So now we see a general trend line here for the ghost bars. It's pretty cool. You can visualize what the price may do next. Now note that it is not meant to be accurate. It's just to help your eyes see what could happen next. Moving on to the next section, all these icons are basically stamps that you can add anywhere. You can resize them. You can change the angle of them. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this. You can even lock them. I don't know why I would want the lightning bolt there specifically, but it's there. We're halfway done. This is a lot of fun stuff to play with. You're really going to like this. The measuring tool, I never ever click on it here because it's just so much easier to use Shift. I just press and hold Shift, then click and drag. And what it does for me is right over here. This date and price range. Now the difference is that this date and price range will stay there. When I use Shift to measure and do the same thing, but maybe even bigger, once I click again, it's gone. So if you want it to stay, you have to use this tool, the date and price range. And if you feel like you may use it a lot, add it to your favorites. The zoom in tool is actually pretty useful, especially if you want to zoom in on a particular area, like right here. I instantly am able to zoom in not only on the time frame, but also in the price range. Whereas if I wanted to do this with the cursor, I would have to do a couple of things. Note that I can zoom in and zoom out on the price by dragging up and down. And I can also, like we talked about before, use Command to zoom in and out, so I can achieve the same effect. But it's a lot easier to use the zoom in, zoom out function if I really want to just quickly check out an area to investigate a pattern or a setup. When I'm done being zoomed in, I can just click zoom out and it refreshes the view. Pretty nice. We talked about the magnet tool before. If I want to use it all the time, I can just have it enabled, and that way I can click and do all my stuff and everything is automatically going to be magnetized. You can see the cursor is looking for the nearest price, so it's just doing it for me automatically. When I press and hold Command, note it goes away. So now it's just been reversed. So depending on if you want to use it or not, most of the time I don't. I really just like to use the Command key and just keep it held down. It's a lot easier. There's a button here to stay in drawing mode and to lock all your drawing tools and to hide all your drawing tools. But sometimes when you make lots of drawings, you may want to see them again. And when you hide them up here or you click this, sometimes they go away and you can't find them. Well, you can actually find all of your drawings and all of your indicators here in the object tree. This is a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about in the next step. There's one more button that is hidden on the left-hand toolbar side, and it's only viewable if you enable an additional chart here in the layouts. So I'm going to add Tesla, but I want to look at Tesla not in the last month, but in the last 3 months. That's automatically going to switch up my time frame to the hourly time frame. So my lower chart is looking at the hourly, my upper chart is looking at the 30-minute. And just like we covered this in the first step, the crosshair, I have it set by default to be the same on the upper and lower charts. I can even match the symbol, but if I match the interval, well, it's going to jump to the same one, and that's not what I want. What I do want though is I want the drawings to be synced, and you note that on the left side, when it's blue, that means it's enabled. I'm going to use Alt-T to draw a very quick trend line. And I want to draw this trend line here from the lower wick all the way up like that. One thing to keep in mind is that when you draw these trend lines on different time frames, note that it may not be exact when you're looking at a longer time frame, or rather a shorter time frame. For instance, if I wanted to go to the 15-minute, well, this might look a little bit off. It may not be exactly right. It may be like this, just a bit to the left. It's okay though. And the reason for this is, I'll make it really obvious here and change this to the 4-hour time frame. And we're still going to have that trend line that I just drew. But what happens is when I move this left and right, even though I'm moving this left and right, note that it's not, there we go. It's finally moved to the other candle. Why? Well, the lower time frame is 4 hours. So in order for me to make a difference, I would have to move this 16 bars ahead to move to the next time frame down below. So if you want precision, use lower time frames. It's not going to matter too much. And if I do want to draw something specific here on the 15-minute chart and not necessarily on the 4-hour chart, just disable this link button and I can make my drawings, I can use my tools, I can do all this fun stuff. And I can add an anchored VWAP. Actually, I'll add it here just to the 4-hour. And there I go. I have this drawing down below, but not up above because they're not linked. Finally, we already talked about the trash can and the favorites, which we can hide. And that is the left-hand sidebar. This is only step 2, and we've covered so much content. And the truth is that I still have more that I want to show you to get you up to the pro level of TradingView usability. I want to remind you as well that there's extra content that isn't available on YouTube. It's only available through our course portal, through thebettertraders.com, where you're going to get a free PDF guide of this entire course. You're going to get a free hotkey sheet that you can print out and use for quick reference while you're learning all these hotkeys for TradingView. And third, you're going to get some really, really sweet information on how to use the screener for crypto, for stocks, and also for Forex. You can only get this through the free course on thebettertraders.com. Check it out now and stay tuned for the next video where we're going to be talking about the right-hand bar, which has tons of features that I can't talk about because you just got to see the next step.